Hello, I'm Mary Bruno. I'm a Creighton Practitioner. I'm the co-founder of FAbM Base. My husband and I have been a marriage prep mentor couple for about 5 years now, and I'm the author of this book, 12 Stripes Deep, How Infertility and Other Suffering Delivered My Greatest Joys. Now, I know you see infertility on the cover here, but this is not a book just about infertility. It's a story about how infertility helped me to understand and really fully embrace my womanhood and, ironically, my motherhood. It really helped me to understand the primary purposes of sex, and it helped me to understand marriage, helped me to grow closer to my spouse in this sacrament that we've entered into together. This is a little bit about what I'm going to unpack for you today. Now, you've probably learned the two primary purposes of intercourse, which are unity and procreation. Procreation is really what I'm going to focus on today because this is something that's very important in our marriages. It's very important to understand, but usually we leave it at that. We say unity and procreation, we go into a little bit of detail, but a lot of people don't fully understand what it means to procreate. And ironically, it was my experience of being infertile that helped me to understand and learn the fullness of what it means to procreate. This is actually important for both the fertile and the infertile. So I'm going to start by talking a little bit about our vows. When we stand up on the altar with our spouse, what we're promising to each other as we enter into this sacrament. Okay, our vows, or when we're going to the altar, we are approaching our future spouse freely. We're giving ourselves totally. That is a fruitful union, or intended to be a fruitful union, and it's faithful. Free, total, fruitful, faithful. You've probably heard of these as well. I'm going to focus again on that fruitful part, but I want to briefly explain all four vows, okay? When we say that we're giving ourselves freely, it basically means that we are here under our own volition. Nobody's forcing us. Nobody's manipulating us. Nobody's paying us to marry somebody. We have the mental awareness and the ability, the freedom to be standing at that altar and making all the promises that we're going to make, right? To be a total gift means that we're not holding anything back. There's not a part of me that I'm not giving to my spouse. I'm not hiding anything. I'm not lying about anything. I'm able to talk about the hard stuff. I'm able to talk about the good stuff. I'm not holding back my fertility because I can't totally give myself to my spouse and leave my fertility out of the picture. Gotta come back to fruitful. But then that leaves us with faithful. And faithful doesn't just mean that we're not hopping into bed with somebody else. It means that we're fully committed to the bed we're in and actively pursuing loving our spouse always. Okay, doesn't mean we can't make mistakes, but that we're always actively going back to our spouse and choosing to love him or her. Now let's go back to fruitful. When we say fruitful, what does that mean? You'll also hear it referred to being open to life. Again, procreation. But what does that really mean? Okay, I want to talk a little bit about a sacrament, okay? When Christ died for us and rose from the dead and ascended into heaven, he promised he would never leave us. And the sacraments are one way that he stays with us always. So the sacraments are channels of grace. When we receive the sacraments and continue to receive the sacraments, it's kind of like an outlet, right? We're staying plugged in to God, and we can continue to receive his grace, continue to ask for it. Now, a sacrament, it makes visible an invisible reality. Okay, for each sacrament, there's a sign. So for baptism, the sign is water. Water represents the cleansing that's actually taking place, right? Water cleans, it purifies, and that's what's actually happening to us, to our soul, when we're baptized. Another example is sacrifice of the Mass, the Eucharist. Okay, it can kind of be thought of as a family meal, right? The signs in the Eucharist are the bread, the wine, and this represents the nourishment that Christ is actually providing for us. Just like food nourishes the body, Christ is literally entering into us to nourish and feed us and strengthen us so that we can go out into the world and bring him to others. Marriage is special. In marriage, the sign is the couple themselves. I just want you to sit with that for a second, okay? Because in marriage, when we stand up and we exchange those vows on the altar, We're promising to love each other as Christ loves the church. And then we are the sign, right? So we are charged to go out into the world and make Christ's love tangible. And that, my friends, is what it means to be fruitful, to procreate, to bring new life into the world. Many times we're going to do that by having a child. And it's a beautiful and wonderful way to procreate, but my friends, it is far from the only way. And even when we do procreate, we are charged to continue to love that child, not just to produce the child, but to continue to love that child until it's time to kick them out of our houses, basically. And hopefully we've loved them as Christ loves the church, so that they are equipped to go and do the same. Can you imagine how fruitful that is? Right? What I'm explaining to you. So again, this is something that's important for both the fertile and the infertile. It's something that was very hard for me because as I grew up in the Catholic Church, I just thought I was supposed to get married and have babies. So when I couldn't do that, I felt like less of a woman, less of a wife, less of a Catholic, and certainly not a mother, until I really entered into this suffering. And this is what I talk about in this book, is how I discovered that instead, infertility, God used that to challenge me to find all the ways that I'm supposed to be fruitful, because that's going to look different and unique for every single couple and every single woman. I'm going to give you some examples. I mentioned my husband and I are marriage prep mentor couple. This is one of many ways God is calling us to be fruitful. My husband loves to build things. He loves to make things. He loves to invite people into our home. That's another way that we're fruitful as a couple, right? Because families can come to us, they can recharge, we can share meals with each other, and then that in turn fills us to go out into the world. This book that I wrote, even though it's a book that I wrote, it's because of the support and the encouragement that my husband has given me. That this book is a fruit of my life, but it's also a fruit of our marriage because of the love that we share. Okay, anytime you cook a meal for someone, you listen to someone, you comfort someone, you educate someone, all things we're doing for our children, right? God calls us, again, to make his love tangible to those around us. So yes, when you get married, be open to life in whatever form God is calling you to be open to. Because being open to life actually means to avoid using actual contraception and to actively pursue all the ways in which God is calling us to love. Again, that's going to look different for everybody. And thank God, because we're unique and we have different gifts. We have different ways that God is calling us to bring love to the world. I want to wrap this up by just sharing with you something that I wrote, going back to sex and its primary purposes. If we think about what sex is and what God wants to happen through the act of intercourse, right? Sex is intended to fully unite husband and wife who have given themselves entirely to one another. Remember, that's in our vows. We're promising to do that. The intended pleasure that results from that union enhances our bond. Enhances the bond that we have established in our marital union. With God's grace and power, that couple proceeds to then take that strength and love and share it with those around them, with the world, in however God calls them to love. So that's how I want you to think about and enter into intercourse within the sacrament of marriage. When we go to unite with our spouse, and that pleasure that results is intended to bring us closer together and to be explosive with the love God has given us into the world. And how beautifully has God created us in this way, right? The capacity for any couple to procreate is equally strengthened through the act of lovemaking. So let's unite, let's procreate, and let's never forget the fullness of what it means to do both of those things. To become unified with our husband, to become one, fully one, and to procreate in all of the beauty that God intended. If you'd like to purchase my book, it's available just about anywhere online that sells books, and you can find me and ask me questions on Instagram at White Lotus Blooming. God bless you.